cloud. And now I'm going to share my screen. All right, so we're just going to talk first about what I have planned for the webinar. Can you see?
Yeah.
What can you see?
Well, I see a page topic of the webinar, 1, 2, 3, 4, all 5 bullet points, your Word document screen.
Awesome. All right, great. Awesome. So today we're going to talk about creating and nurturing business relationships with SMS. So, when it comes down to the nitty gritty of it, when it comes to text messaging, people will respond to you, but the problem is getting those leads, those people to a mutual agreement. And this mutual agreement would be, conversion. It could be, turning them into a contract, turning them into a lead. So what I'm going to talk about today is kind of how do we get there and how do we go about doing that? What kind of key elements do you think about when you're talking about creating these relationships so that it's something that you can reproduce over and over and over, you can implement it to your business, and then it just makes sense for you, right? And one of the things that we'll talk about today, which is towards the end, is just apply what best fits what you want to do and use, the best parts of it to make it your own. So when it comes down to creating the business relationships with SMS, you have to start by making a plan. Just like anything else, we got to make a plan. And the way I have it laid out today is that we are really just asking questions, because like anything else, it's the question that provokes the thought in your mind and what allows you to start thinking about options. And so if I just came up here and I just started telling you, this is what you need to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it kind of feels very authoritative. But when in reality, I just want you to explore the things that you have in mind so that you can go ahead and start trying to implement it on your business in real time. So the first thing is, how many months are you prepared to commit to, right? When it comes down to text messaging, it is expensive, and that's okay. But are you in it for the long term, or are you in it for the short term? How long do you really see yourself doing this? How long do you really see yourself not only in real estate? How long do you see yourself using this same SMS account for? Because it's just so much history. I can go into the smarter contact account I have now, and I can go back a year ago. I can look at all these leads from a year ago and I can follow up with them, and that's the beauty of it. But if I decide, hey, I'm going to try this out for 6 months, that's fine too, as long as I'm honest with myself. Because if in 6 months I decide to go somewhere else, I have to be cognizant and conscious of leaving all these previous data, previous conversation histories in the account. Which, your business might be a little different. Maybe you've already done all that you could with those leads, and that's something you're okay with, but you just want to make sure that you ask yourself that question from the beginning. Which brings us to the next point, which is how much can you budget for, in terms of, how much can you allocate financially for text messaging, right? And that's really the biggest thing when it comes to creating a plan and creating goals. So for example, last week I texted a certain amount of people. I sent out a certain amount. So I sent out 5,430, right? So we're just going to use that as an example. 5,430 times 2 cents, that's $108. That was just the ones I sent, but in reality, it was more like 6,500 total after, responses and all that good stuff. So let me do that instead. So that's $130. And that's in 1 week, right? We're not including numbers yet. We're not including the membership yet, but we're getting there. So this is just an example of what that actually looks like. Because, what we're doing here is we're just creating a goal and seeing how realistic it is, what kind of results we can get from it, and how that really works out in the day-to-day. Because if you can budget for it and you can plan for it, you're more likely to commit yourself to this plan, because how much you're already going to spend. But if you kind of keep pushing it off, I don't want to spend this much money, I don't really know what I'm going to do this week, it really, really ends up hurting you because you just keep putting it, putting this in the future, procrastinating it. And at the end of the day, you still have to pay that monthly membership, and it comes due and you're like, damn, did I really maximize that tool, that software that, at one point I thought was really beneficial for my company, but have you really put it into good use? Just like PropStream costs a certain amount every month, just like Deal Machine might cost a certain amount every month. That's okay as long as you're getting the 100% potential out of those softwares. That's really the most important thing. So for example, with PropStream, it has like a $10,000 or the 10,000 lead import and export limit, right, per month. I want to make sure that every month that's my minimum. I want to be importing 10,000 and I want to be exporting out 10,000. So that way I really feel like I'm getting my 100 and something, $129, I think is what it cost me. But I feel like I'm really, benefiting from that. So same thing with Smarter Contact. If I signed up for the elite plan, which is $300, and in my opinion, you probably should be doing at least 5,000 messages per week if you're on that plan. You can do less, you can do more. You can do it all in the first week and then just live off of it for the rest of the month. But that's what we're talking about today is how much can you budget for consistency's sake? How many monthly SMS are you prepared to target on a weekly level, on a daily level? How often are you going to do that? Are you doing this every single day, or are you doing it every other day? Or are you only doing it Mondays and Saturdays? What does that really look like? We have to be very, very specific when it comes to setting these goals and setting these budgets too. So going back to the example of how much I spent this previous week, 6,500, right, times 2 cents, that's 130 times 4, that's $520 in just SMS per month, right? And that's not including the membership, so that's at the 300 plus the opt-out removal, which is 140. Do you remember, Carlos, how much it is? Do you remember? Like 140 or 150? Let's go with 150.
I think it's about 129, brother.
Okay, so minus $20. All right, so that's 950 plus the monthly amount of numbers that you're using, right? So I think I have at least 50. So we're right at 1,000, right? We're right at 1,000. But you have allotted on a weekly level. Well, actually, let's start from the big, the monthly. This is where we're starting off. The monthly, 65 times 4. That's 26,000 SMS per month, right? That's total. That's not just the ones you're sending, but that's just like between the entire month. So 26,000 SMS, that sounds pretty good, and at the end of the day, then you'll be able to figure out, once you kind of get towards the end of the month, right? Let's say this is your first month absolutely doing it. You'll be able to say, all right, so out of 26,000, I was able to get X amount of leads that I added to the pipeline, X amount of contracts that were, ready to go from the jump. And then I've got X amount of follow-ups, right? That's why I'm really big on the grades, but we'll get to that. I don't want to jump around too much. But does that make sense, Carlos and TJ?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Another thing is that, for example, when you guys are starting to think about what kind of marketing you want to do for the upcoming month, I like to go ahead and start thinking about the upcoming month on the beginning of the last week of the month. So we're in April 12th now. I was thinking about April, like March 24th, March 25th, just because, when I sit down, I can't immediately throw up everything that is coming through my mind. I know that I have goals, but I don't know how long it's going to take me to get it all out of my system. And sometimes it comes in waves. It's like you get this idea, and then if you don't write it down, it just disappears, and you're like, damn, I wish I would have written that down. So just keep something like a note open on your iPhone of ideas for marketing this upcoming month. And that's whenever you get these ideas, write them down, put it in practice, put it in an application, and see how that helps you. So the next bullet point is, how will SMS work as a part of your business? Can you make it work alongside other marketing channels? Right. So is it just SMS that you're expecting to contribute all of your production, or is it something else that you're going to be using alongside of that to work together? How many types of conversations are you prepared for? You know, these clients that you'll be reaching out to, they can most of the time they're saying a lot of the same things. So how often are you really just sitting down and thinking about, all right, so if they tell me this, or they send me this response, which I know they already send me this response because I've done, 3 campaigns and I get all the same responses. So how can I make my life easier? Especially if you're looking to delegate it, how can I make my VA's job a lot easier? And what type of macros are you going to need for those responses? So that's whenever I start thinking about my macros. I'm like, I just don't want to have just one option when it comes to this response. I want to have 2 or 3, because you guys know that it's not about what you say, but about how you say it. So if somebody says not interested, it's a lot different than saying no, not right now. Those are 2 different responses that you can really group together. But if you really sit down and think about it, you realize, actually this person might do it, but not just right now. They literally said that. But because we're thinking so fast, we're like, hey, is this something that I can immediately get some sort of reward from? And it doesn't have to be immediate. So let's see. That is part number 1, creating a plan. So TJ, I know that you wanted to go ahead and start doing a little bit more SMS, let's say for the month of May, given that you have this knowledge, right, of planning in terms of budget and in terms of the marketing goals that you have. How does that creating a plan help you? What do you think you'll do this upcoming month now in terms of SMS? How many leads are you prepared to target on a monthly level?
I've never until you really just said it out loud, I've never really thought about I guess planning ahead to determine how many I'm going to market, or how much I'm going to spend on market. And honestly, I just kind of normally just decide when I'm going to market and pick a lead or pick a list, and I just shoot it out. I don't even kind of go about really being strict about knowing what I'm spending and knowing what I'm marketing to and all of that. So I mean, really, I'm kind of really just gonna start from scratch and just really break down the same way you just broke it down. Just break down how much it's going to cost to send out this many, what group of people, or what I guess criteria of people I'm going to be targeting, how many people is in that list, how long am I going to be marketing to I'm really just kind of just going to be starting from the beginning, moving forward for my next month, just kind of starting from the beginning and really plotting it out that way. So
yeah,
I mean, honestly, yeah,
I would love to take out. Yeah, I would love to take out just let's do it's 221 right now. Let's work into 225. Just working on your plan for May, bro. Because I really want you to get something immediate in terms of planning out of it. And Carlos, if you want to do it, the exercise together, but for your own example, right? For your own situation, feel free to do so. So, months always repeat. Every month is 30 days or 31 days, unless it's February. And we know that all months have 4 weeks. So let's start there, right? 4 weeks is an even number. So that means that we can divide that 1 month by 4. So that also means that we can divide it in half, and we get 2 weeks at the beginning of the month and 2 weeks at the end of the month. So where am I going with this? You also have a lot of different ways of getting data, right? You can get, brand new leads. You can get old leads. You can also get certain types of leads. You can get vacant leads. You can also get probate leads. You can also get high equity, you know, all these examples, right? So on one column, I want you to target, or I want you to write down all the types of leads or data that you can target. So we're talking the ones that you have immediate access to, right? The vacants, right? Let's start with that, vacants, or driving for dollars, or probates, right? And so what we're gonna do out of this is, going back to the way that we're breaking up the month on the other side of your paper, right? Is that we're just gonna start dropping these options on every week, right? So the first week, primarily, I would want to target the recently vacant ones, recently vacant properties that I can go ahead and target at the beginning of every month, because that's usually when they're updated from like, you know, the United States Postal Service. And then at the beginning of every month, I like to start off with a fresh pair or fresh set of leads, you know, something that's brand new to my system. Say that one more time, bro.
Not you, I was listening to you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know if you had asked something, but okay. So
No.
then we have bad credit, right? We have bad credit leads. Once again, just spend some time on one side of the paper, all the different types of data or leads that you can target, new and existing, and then decide for yourself, when am I going to fit these into my marketing calendar? Because that's really what we need, a marketing calendar that's going to give us this kind of guidance on what we're going to do that month, right? So that way we're not only more prepared on how much we're going to spend and how much we're actually going to do, but what we are going to target, you know. So we're answering the who, the what, the when, the where, all of that, so that we have more guidance. So TJ, what are some of the leads that you typically target or the ones that you have access to, right? What are some of the ones that you have now?
All right, so you know, I kind of go off of like I guess a generalized criteria, and then, well, I pick my areas first. So the first thing I do is I pick my areas that I want to target. So once I figure out the areas that I want to target, then I use the area, and I'll filter that area by certain criteria. And then after I find those criteria, that develops a list. So once I have that list, that's what I'll aim to target. So one of the lists that I have like available right now is I have it by numbers. So let's just say number, it's all North Carolina anyway, but let's just say number 2, for example. Number 2 is Granville, Vance, Warren, Persons, and Caswell County. And then I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different criteria for each one of those that I'll be targeting. All together, that comes up to 1,190 properties. So what I would do is break those 1,190 properties or 1,190 prospects. I'll break those up into what, like so like just using Smarter Contact for an example. I would go ahead and put that into Smarter Contact, and then I would set it up on a basically like a drip campaign, so that I'll send out a certain amount each day, so that, you know, after each day I'll grade each one of them, and they'll go into their own category, whether they be interested, not interested, long-term follow-up, short-term follow-up, and I guess it would go however many like would send out a day. I would break that up into a daily thing and see if I can make it into a week thing or into a 2-week thing. And then because I have the number of people that I'm going to be marketing to, I write down how much, pretty much, or get a generalized estimate of how much that's going to cost. And I guess that would be the first, I guess that would be like the first steps into doing it before marketing. And then I guess to like build on that would be after marketing, seeing my results, and I guess developing a strategy on how to build on that, or, you know, because I mean, everything that goes into that initial campaign, to an extent, is going to be recycled, because everybody's not going to respond. Some people's going to be interested, some people's not going to be interested, and then, you know, all of these people are going to go up into a follow-up campaign, and then I would have to, I guess, categorize how many people are not interested, how many people fall into that, and how much is that campaign going to cost? Now that I have a not interested list, or a not interested campaign, how many people is in that, and how much is that going to cost? When am I going to send that out? Same thing for like long-term follow-up or short-term follow-up, or any of the other grades that I have. You know, just now that I kind of learned from what you just told me, basically, like, even though I have that understanding of it, it's about writing it down and really having a systemized way of doing every aspect of the business, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And, you know, one of the things that I wanted to mention was that you kind of hit the nail on the head, is, you know, some of the people that you've already spoken to, the ones that are kind of close, but you're not exactly right there to be able to make something of it. You know, being able to group those together, export them out, and then re-SMS those, and just hitting them with something, you know, like a message saying, hey, we spoke last week, you know. That's something that you can do this is something that you can do on your 4th week, or the last week of the month, is group everybody together that you actually talk to at the beginning of the month, or the entirety of the beginning of the month. Say, hey, we spoke earlier this month. Just wanted to see what happened. That or it could be like, we spoke earlier this month. I just want to make sure that if you're not interested, I can take you off the list, right? So we can at least get the response. Or just go in, hey, you know, we spoke earlier this week. I never heard back from you. Just want to check in. You know, leave it open ended. So it's a few ways to do that. So let's see. The next thing that I want to talk about is tips for great messages. And I like to, everything can be broken down, and a lot of times we don't realize how the blueprint is kind of there for us, and we're just so busy with what we have going on that we don't take time to actually think about it all the way through. But one thing that I wanted to show you guys right here is, whenever you're just developing messages, is an easy way is holidays. Like, there's so many holidays in the entirety of the year. I mean, I probably couldn't count them, but if you actually bring your calendar out, if you bring your calendar out and you just see, you know, what's the next holiday, you can start developing so many new messages. So, for example, what's going on this weekend? You know, what holiday is going to happen this weekend? Easter, yes. And so the great thing about holidays is that you can bear fruit from it into that holiday and after that holiday. So what do I mean by that? You know, so leading up to, for example, the most popular holiday, Christmas and New Year. Hey, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We say that the entire month of December. Some people say November and December. You know what I mean? And after the fact, right? What do you say? Hey, I hope you had a great Christmas and a great New Year. Yada yada yada. And then obviously you can do it the day up, but nobody's actually working those days. But when it comes down to how can we relate that to what we do day in and day out with SMS, is that you can do the same thing with these text messages. Like, for example, up until Friday, right? If you haven't done a campaign, or if you're thinking about doing one and you just don't know what to say, just say, hey, I hope you have a good Friday. If you do a marketing campaign on Friday, or I hope you're gonna have a great, I hope you have a great Easter weekend. My name is Kevin, but it is 123 Main Street yours? And boom, actually I counted the character count on this example that I wrote up here. I hope you have a great Easter weekend. My name is Kevin, but would address happen to be yours? You're saying so much there. You're just being relevant, so that people are instantly going to think, yes, this is someone that's a real person. It's not somebody that is just spamming my phone They
Yep.
obviously are aware of the holidays. It seems a little more genuine because you're introducing yourself, but you're also keeping it short, and you're leaving the question open. You know what I mean? You're not just going for a yes or a no. So it's does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. It's a way to get them to realize that you're not just a robot spamming 150 million people. You're taking the time to create almost like a personalized message for them, right? Or at least they feel like it.
Absolutely. And you know, the beautiful thing about it is that you can that same relevant essence, right? The value behind being relevant is just what's going on right now in your life that other people can relate to, right? Like right now it's 2 o'clock, right? So 2:30, it's afternoon time. It's not morning anymore. So if somebody texts me saying something about good morning, I'm gonna have questions. I'm gonna have doubts. So you just want to be more relevant and more relatable as a person, so that the people can understand that. Another huge thing is, for example, COVID was a big event, right? And there are so many ways to capitalize off of that. You know, I hope that your family is safe. I hope that you're being protected. Yada yada
Yeah.
yada. And this is where the real unique and genuine side of things actually come out, because this is something you can't copy and paste. This is something that comes from intention, because you actually sat down and you started thinking about, okay, what's going on around me that other people can relate to, right? You're not just going and copying and pasting something that's that you found online, right? Or something that you've seen somebody else do. And you'll feel more rewarded that way also, because you came up with it. You kind of had some guidance, but it was a lot easier, and you still feel that sense of reward from your efforts. So right now I'm looking at the calendar, and in April we have Good Friday, we have Easter, we have Tax Day on the 18th, we have Cinco de Mayo coming up this upcoming in May. I'm gonna juice. I know. So going back to planning, that's something that you can plan around the holidays. What's gonna happen this upcoming month that I can reap, some fruit out of. So Cinco de Mayo. Hey, I hope you enjoy your margaritas if you celebrate Cinco de Mayo. But before you do that, I'm looking for first name, last name. Something so simple. Oh, what do you want to? Who is this? They're gonna ask you. But boom, you started that conversation, and they know that it's somebody real. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Absolutely.
And another thing is, the weather, right? Sometimes, Carlos, for example, last week, I think it started raining, if I'm not mistaken, like in the middle of, we had a cold front, didn't we, last week, Carlos?
Yeah,
And
yeah. Out of nowhere, it was like in the 40s.
a perfect example to keep, stay relevant in that situation would have been, I hope you're not on the roads today, because it's thundering real bad. But this is Carlos, just checking in to see if this is first name and last name. Something so simple. So but it really comes down to the details, right? The details of what you're doing and how much you're actually aware of the present moment and what's going on around you. So what I'm going to do now is I want you guys to start thinking about it. What are some of the things that you can now use, combining the planning stage of establishing relationships with your messaging stage of creating relationships through SMS? What are some examples, Carlos, that you can think about in terms of those two things, something that sticks out to you?
I think, with Easter, honestly, that's the first one that comes to mind, with Easter coming up, and any of these big things, anything that shows up in your general calendar, it's almost an excuse just to touch base with people that you're following up. So I'm going to be scheduling blasts around these holidays, either the day before, the day after, and kind of alternate it and keep myself at the forefront of their mind, right? Just knowing that, hey, look, I'm taking the time. It's not just hey, is this blank from 123 Main Street? Everyone and their mother gets that kind of message, right? So I'm going to work on that for sure.
Absolutely. It's just that one little piece of being different that really is going to stick out to those people. Like, they're going to be aware, like, this person's actually in the US. They're not, somewhere in Bangladesh or India or in the Philippines,
Yeah.
What about you, TJ? What do you think? What's something that you can use given that information now?
Well, I'm kind of thinking about like seasons, because we're kind of in a prime season right now. We're like in the like kind of springtime, getting ready for the summertime. And just like y'all said, like, you know, y'all just had a cold front in the middle of spring. So like I would say, like, I guess even to the aspect of who I should even be targeting, because I mean we just got done with income tax time too. So like determining, okay, so people just got their income tax time. Of course they're gonna be spending it. Who should I be targeting? And then with it being summertime, who should I be targeting when it, you know, because who buys more in the summer? Who sells more in the summer? And then how can I use that to like make a message around it? You know what I'm saying? Because like just like it's a lot of people sell right before Christmas and a lot of people sell right after Christmas. And then like for me, I'm going through a slow period. But then the summertime's coming up. What does that mean? Like, you know, and then the market is changing. The market is really like in North Carolina, you know, it's booming right now. Like, you know, Raleigh and Charlotte and everything, like prices are high. So I would just want to use, I guess, like you said, like, you know, what's going on in the world and what's, you know, what's going on to be able to develop a message, well, not only just a message, but a criteria of who I should be targeting for that time frame, you know, because that I think that plays a part also.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, one thing that's really important is just preparing for it, planning for it, and then just taking action. And you know, some of these things they can be used in more than just text messaging. They can be used in cold calling, you know, or you know, what I call following up is because you can say, hey, you know, we spoke last year. I hope you're having a good Easter weekend. Just wanted to check in and see if this is or if you're still considering selling, or if you ended up selling that house. You know, holidays can be just a used as an excuse to step in the door, or time of the season, as TJ mentioned. There was something that really stuck out to me that you said, bro, that I was trying to circle back to. When it came down to planning, I think you were talking about, oh yeah, so you were saying how you know, the market is hot. You know, it's a perfect message to be able to say, hey, you know, Charlotte, right? If Charlotte is your market, Charlotte's number 5 in the real estate market for 2022. Just wanted to see if you'd reconsider an offer for your home. You know, something so simple, right? How much I could give you for it. You know, now I can probably go ahead and give you a higher offer. I just want to get on the phone with you. And so that message has to be unique for us to be able to rekindle that conversation. So if make sure that you guys use this example that I have. I mean, now there's not that many people still on the call, but you know, I'm sure that if you guys use this in your marketing campaigns, you know, I hope you have a great Easter weekend. My name is Kevin. Bellwood address happen to be yours. You're gonna get some responses because it's so unique. People are gonna you know, want to engage with you, and that's really the question you want to ask yourself: how can I engage this person? And sometimes it can be a case-by-case basis. You know, for example, if someone ghosts you, for example, right, someone that you were really close to getting under contract, or whatever it may be, and then something changed, right, and then now you can't even get in touch with them, but you remember something that stuck out to you in their conversation, which can sound like, give me a second, guys, I think somebody is not muted. But if something stuck out to you, I know there was this one lead that I have been touching base with for over 2 years or something like that. And one of the things that stuck out to me in our first conversation was that he had a Camaro. And, you know, at one point I had a Camaro too. So I was able to just build the rapport off of that one thing. Hey, you know, I hope, you know, you're taking care of your Camaro. You know, do you still have it? Yada, yada, yada. And then one day it actually happened that he responded to me based off of that. Something so simple, you know, it was just that one initial message that engaged him. So the third thing that I want to talk about is a really awesome system that I discovered reading a book by Ryan Serhant, which is like this, he's got a bunch of reality shows and he made this book about just being, you know, a better salesperson. But what really stuck out to me when I read this book, and I read this book like 2 years ago, was this process that he had that really stuck with me. And it's the follow up, the follow through, and the follow back, right? And I never really thought about it. I mean, I felt like I was onto something, but I never really had something in my face that says, like, this is so deep that you can implement it even in your SMS campaign, even in your wholesaling business. And what that sounds like is, all right, so you have your follow-up, right? Like, you guys are sending these campaigns, right? I'm going to give you a real world example. You guys are sending these campaigns, and regardless whether you have a high, or what you might consider a highly successful campaign, or maybe you have one that is a little underperforming, right? So what that means, give me guys a second. I feel like there's so many people joining now. Yes. If you guys are just now joining, just make sure you mute your phone so that we're not making too much noise. Whoops. All right. So perfect example of here. I'm gonna just go ahead and give you guys a real world example, sharing my own, what do you call it? My own experience. And you guys let me know how you like it. All right, so what we're talking about right here is it's a 3-step process: the follow-up, the follow-through, and the follow-back. And it can be mirrored in so many different ways. But I'm gonna just go ahead and start. Can you guys see my Smarter Contact account?
Yes, sir.
Can you guys? Okay, cool. So last week, this is my performance for last week. And in terms of the numbers, I really don't even consider the numbers like a good or a bad. I kind of just take it for what they are and make something out of it. What I really love is that when you start grading them, you start grading these responses, you can actually see what kind of responses you have. Like, you know, a response rate of 32% is great. In my opinion, if you have X amount of hot leads and X amounts of follow-ups, right? Because it's like people think about SMS as like a black and white. Like, you send a campaign and they expect deals to immediately like hop in their lap. And you know, sometimes it happens, but it's not something you can count on. You have to count on your process to carry these initial conversations forward. And that's what we're talking about today, these business relationships. So for example, in total for last week, I got 67 prospecting grades, right? 67 prospecting leads. I got 7 follow-up leads. I have 6 hot leads. What happens is that we have these campaigns, then we start another campaign, and then we start another campaign, and then before you know it, you forgot about this this lead that you had, so you know, before, and maybe something happened where they just didn't respond and you didn't follow up with this person, which is what we're talking about here, right? So let me show you guys what that really looks like. So if I'm going to come into here and I'm going to look at my prospecting. So for example, this person said, who is this? And I told them, I was hoping I had the right person. Have you considered selling? And they said, not sure, right? Not sure at this time. This is someone that I can follow up with in the future, right? Because now I have the right number. This is definitely Esther Billingsley, right? This is the owner. I have the right person. She's just not ready right now. That's okay. We can all we have to do is make sure that we categorize her or group her in the right place. So maybe I want to just put her as follow-up for the moment, right? She said not right now, follow-up. And if you come in here, you can actually do it through the software, and you can click right here in your calendar, when do I want to follow up with her? Well, she says not sure at this time, so maybe I just want to do it like 6 months from now. So maybe in October I'll check back in with her.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I'm gonna make some use out of that response, because what would happen is you know, someone that's brand new to this would say, well, they're not ready to go, I'm gonna move on. Why would you leave this important response in here, right? Sure, it might not turn into anything, right? That's a point that you could make. But at the end of the day, if you don't find out, if you don't follow up, you will never know, and somebody else may get it. Because if someone's gonna if I talk to someone, they're gonna sell to somebody, right? I just want it to be me. Let's go into this. And this person said, yeah, this is Robert. Who is this? Or who this? And I told them, I'm trying to get in touch with you. And then I never heard back from them. So I grouped these people, right? These are the right numbers. Prospecting is like, it's the right number. I haven't gotten to them to a point where I know if it's a lead that I'm gonna get on the phone, or maybe it's not. Hold on, guys. Someone's a little loud. Oh, there we go. Oh, thank you, Jesus. Okay, so where am I going with this follow-up that I keep talking about, right? So all you have to do is export them out into a file, and then you're gonna just drop them into a brand new campaign, and you can send them you can send them multiple messages that sound something along the lines of, hey, we spoke last year, or we spoke last month, whatever it may be, or we spoke in the past about your property and I never heard back from you. Just wanted to circle back. Something so simple, right? Because and that's going to be a very efficient campaign because you have the right number. And especially if we go back to the step number one, when it comes to creating and nurturing business relationship through SMS, is that if you make a commitment to be in this SMS space for at least 6 months, and you pull all of your prospecting leads at the end of at the 6th month, you're going to have a ton of leads. And I'm sure that you can rekindle some conversations and rekindle some relationships to be able to do that. And the point of it is to be memorable, to be this person that sticks out in their mind, right? Now, can you do it solely through text messaging? Of course not. Sometimes you do have to get on the phone with these people. Hey, it's nothing beats having that kind of connection that you can build on the phone with someone, having those laughs in real time, having those memories in real time. So let's see. Another thing that I wanted to talk about along the side of that is follow through. So following through is you call them when you say you will, and you keep your word with what you say you can do. That is really important. So let's see, for example, Carlos, have you ever had something happen where you actually give me a second, let me see. I think somebody, Jack Sparrow, mute. Can everybody just mute themselves, please?
Yep.
But Carlos, I was going to ask you, have you ever lost a lead because you just forgot to call them? You just forgot to do what you say you were going to do?
Yeah, I just didn't put it in my tasks, and then it just slipped through the cracks. It's happened more than once, to be honest with you.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I'm trying to get to here is that you want to just have a process of making sure that you don't, or you do your best to make sure you speak to as many people as you can. And the reality is, once you start doing this consistently, you're just going to have so many contacts. It's going to be really hard to keep up, with 66 different prospecting leads, right? 66 plus 8 plus 6. I mean, that's a good amount of conversations there. If I would have had the same success cold calling, I would feel like I've had the best day of my life cold calling. I'd be like, I'll just hit the lottery with like these conversations. Like I just keep getting these opportunities on my lap. But because they're through text message, they feel a little more black and white, and it's more likely for you to say, oh, well, that's fine. I can just sacrifice one. But that's not the truth.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to manage these leads. Oh my goodness. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. So does everything make sense in terms of the follow-up and the follow-through? You guys with me?
With you.
And one thing that's really important, and especially I see there's a lot of real estate investors here. So you guys might be able to understand where I'm coming from with this, but the follow back, right? For example, let's say they said a follow back is something as simple as someone that you were talking to and they said, oh, we actually sold it to someone else. But what if they have another house, right? Or they have another property, and maybe they did business with someone else on that one property, but all you have to do is follow back with them and say, hey, at one point you were interested in selling me 123 Main Street, but I remember you mentioned that you also own 356 Main Street. Are you still considering selling that one too? I know you wanted to space them out a bit. Something so simple, follow them back. You have these conversations with people all the time, and most of these landlords, most of these real estate investors that own property own more than one, and if you struck out the first time, there's nothing wrong with following back to see if you can get that second one. TJ, I think you have had a lady that sold you like 4 or 5 of her houses, right?
Yeah, off of deal machine. My first deals, my first like maybe 4 deals came from a deal machine, and she had 4 of them. Like I sold one of them, and one of them went really, really quickly. And just because I was consistent with like staying in touch with her and just, basically following through everything that I said that I was going to do, she loved my work ethic, and she just loved the efficiency. So, and just being honest with her and letting her know if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't, But a lot of the sellers, they like honesty, upfrontness, and they like for you to keep your word. And if you can do that, it'll take you a long ways in the game.
Yeah, exactly. So, and all you did simply was follow back after every time you close. Hey, when you're ready to sell your next property, whenever that is, no rush, of course, just let me know. And then I think, what do you say? Like within a couple of weeks, she'll call you and say, hey, I want to sell my next one. What do you give me for that one?
Yep.
And then once you do a deal with someone, right, it's really easy to do another one, because now they have this rapport and this trust so deeply embedded in their mind that they know that you would do what you say you would do, right? And because it's already happened. So it's a great opportunity. Follow back with your old leads that you've already closed deals with to see if they have anything else, and it could be through a text message, it could be through a phone call, but this is something that, like I said, can be mirrored in every marketing channel that you have going forward. So Carlos, do you have, I think you just had something similar, right? That you had a follow back opportunity that you were able to close recently.
Yeah, sort of. It was it's Bill and Catherine. So we had a wholesale deal last year. I sold like 3 or 4 of their lots, and then just checking in with them, honestly, just like every 3 months or so since then. And then out of nowhere, I was actually calling about 2 other properties that I knew they had. And then finally, when, it was just the right time, they picked up, they told me, hey, I was really thinking about you. Just like what sounds like happened with TJ, they liked the way I worked. They liked that I went above and beyond for them. So they said, we've been getting calls about this other property that I didn't even know existed and that they want to sell it. So we're working on getting that done now. They want to work together, but unfortunately they had a loss in the family out of kind of nowhere. So it's, put a little stop to it. So for right now, it's just not the right time.
Absolutely. So that's perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So it's easy as that, following back to previous opportunities you've had, even if it's a lost opportunity. Like I mentioned, if those of you that maybe are in a different industries like insurance, or maybe you own a gym, maybe you own a car dealership, just because that one opportunity didn't work out doesn't mean there's not an opportunity for another potential business relationship to take place. Because if you come from a good place of love and understanding, and you want to continue to do business with different kinds of people, then you can implement that in your processes, where if you lost a sale, hey, I just want to check in with you. It didn't work out the first time. Are you still in the market? Or how are you currently liking that service that you're trying out? For example, if you sold a car, or if somebody bought a car from someone else, and it wasn't you, how are you liking that car? Because you never know, they might be hating that car. They might want to trade it in. And especially with houses, right? People move more than one time in their lifetime, many times. So that's why real estate is so lucrative, because you just continue to do business over and over, and you just want to be that person they can trust. So Any questions on bullet point 3? You know, follow through, follow back. Any kind of questions that I can help you trying to dig into how you can apply it on in your business now?
No, so far pretty clear, man.
Cool. All right. So, understanding KPIs is the fourth thing that I have for today. Is what type of responses do you receive? How do you categorize them? What does that say about your campaign? How does your response rate in SMS compare to other channels? How can you continue to dig into the same data you're targeting? How can you group together these responses to remarket too, right? So very similar to what we were just talking about. What type of responses do you receive? So if you are an investor, obviously you guys get not interested all the time. The sold, you know, I've already sold my property. How are you categorizing them currently? What kind of grades do you use to group these responses together so that, you know, when it comes to responses, they are just that, right? You can't change what someone, if someone says they're not interested in selling, that's it. If someone's saying that they want $500,000 for their house and their house is currently worth 400,000, group them into a certain bracket, right? Because one thing that I've learned in the last 12 months is that appreciation will do wonders. So if you had a lead last year that was asking 300,000, and maybe at that time it was just too tight for you to get under contract, if you would have categorized this response into a place that you can export them out at any point in time, then you'll be able to create more opportunities for yourself, because now you can touch back base with those people and say, hey, last year we had a conversation, you were at a certain price, we weren't able to make it work at that time, but the market has changed, and I just wanted to see if you still have the property available, and if so, how much are you currently asking, right? Are you still asking the same amount? Because sometimes people have a certain number in mind and they stick to that number, right? They're just waiting for the first person to come and say, hey, I'll do that number, we'll make it work, boom, here it is. So what if, and you know, I'm using an example of 12 months ago, especially for Florida, I think the market has appreciated like 35%, if I had to guess. What about a conversation from 2 years ago, right? Let's say you had a conversation, you know, exactly like it from 2 years ago, and this person asked a certain amount back then. Now it's a spectacular deal because the market has appreciated so much from then until now, and maybe they still have it, right? But if you don't establish these relationships with people where you can call them and say, hey, you remember me? You know, we talked 2 years ago, and they'll say, oh, yeah. Or you can remember something that stuck out to you. Like maybe they have a certain dog. Hey, how's your dog doing? Or maybe they have a certain kind of car. Hey, how's your car doing? You know, have you done anything else to your car? Or, you know, anything, any kind of, and this is what, whenever I'm on the phone or I'm texting these people, I want something to stick out to me that I can remember. So it's something that I can constantly go back to. It's like a cornerstone of this person, like this story, right? So that I can always have something to talk about to rekindle that relationship, because it's something that I continue to touch on every single time. Like, oh, that's the guy that always asks me about my cat. You know, that's the investor that's always asking me about X, Y, and Z. So does that make sense? That one particular instance that I just kind of broadly took into one example. What do you think, TJ? Do you have any examples from like that where, you know, a person was at a certain price and couldn't make it work right then and there, but after time you went back and try to see if you can make it work after the market appreciated a little bit?
I don't have any deals that I've done like that, but I do have a couple of properties that I'm in the process of working on like right now because of that. And you know, like I'm close to Wilmington and everything, so I got some properties in Wilmington that it just at the time it just wasn't a good fit. But now, like just like in Florida, I mean, it's crazy out here. I mean, there's properties that was maybe $100,000 cheaper than it is now, you know, just because of the market has changed. So now that I know that I can revisit those avenues or revisit those people and be like, hey, you know, this didn't work out before. And even in Burgall, like, you know, just because it's a lot of people are moving from out of that city market and just coming a little bit outside, and that's perfect for me. I fall right into that category because that's the areas I'm looking for. And I'm like, hey man, it didn't work out before, but you know, things are changing. I mean, would you accept this offer now, or how does this? I mean, I like to revisit an offer. You know, could we have a sit down and discuss pricing, or even owner financing? You know, just any kind of opportunity now, like you said, because of the market is changing, and just taking advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you know, one thing too is that and where I'm going with this, right? What type of responses do you receive and how do you categorize them? What I'm really talking about is grades, right? I know I talk a lot about grades all the time, but the reality is that it's such a creative way of keeping track of the information that you're receiving. Now I have my own, right? But what I want you guys to explore is that you can make it your own too, and you can have something that's way different than me. For example, if someone, you know, if you can start categorizing responses off of asking price. So this person might say, like, maybe you have one grade that is like these are like the really tight deals, like maybe 80 to 90% of ARV. And then that's one grade, right? And then you have another one where it's like 90% to 100% of ARV, right? So if you, and then, you know, maybe you have like the really crazy prices where you're like 100 to 125% of ARV. And depending on how redundant you think this is, maybe you just do something above that, 125% and up of ARV, and that's it. You got 4 different grades, but now you have 4 different ways of categorizing responses off, I guess, based off of their asking price. Because one thing that you know, if you've done some SMS marketing, is that some people will right off the bat tell you, this is my number. If you can't hit this number, don't bother texting back. Cool, that's fine. That's fine. You know, like if that's really how you feel, I can't change that, right? You know, we all wish we could, but we can at least categorize and put them in a place where we know that they're there. And so a year from now, you know, if the market continues to appreciate the way it is doing now, and, you know, we see another 20 to 30% appreciation, then you can come back to these responses, the 80 to 90, the 90 to 100, and now they might make sense. What do you guys think of that? Did that stick out to anybody?
Yeah, and then in fact, it can also come down the price.
I'm sorry, what was that? I'm sorry, I thought I had heard somebody respond. But I hope that this is kind of giving you a different way of looking at your responses. And now that's just one example. Especially if you're not in real estate, maybe you're in something else, then you can do with it as you please. But this is kind of the creative thinking you have to think about to be able to make sure that the way that you have your business set up is way different than anybody else's, because you're doing your own thinking. You're not waiting for someone to come and tell you exactly what to do, because you know what best fits your needs. So let's continue with some of these questions, right? And for those of you joining that are looking at this page and wondering, you know, why so many questions, is because this webinar is really for you to think introspectively, think, you know, ask the question so that you provide an answer. Most of the time, if I start off with a statement, then you ask a question. But if I ask a question first, then you provide a statement, right? So you see where I'm going with that. So if you guys are just joining and you're looking at the sheet, you know, we start off asking questions about creating a plan, asking questions about creating great messages. The follow-up, the follow-through, the follow-back, those are primarily ways of thinking about leads and how to get back in touch with them. Understanding KPIs, and that's where we pick back up about questions, and that's where I'm at now, is what does that say about, you know, what does the responses say about your campaign? If you're targeting a probate kind of list, it's going to be a way different kind of campaign than someone that is maybe free and clear, or high equity, or divorce, or bankruptcy, or bad credit. You know, so many different ways you can think about this. So how does your response rate in SMS compare to other channels? This is really important because it really helps you understand your KPIs. One thing that I see people do a lot is they give up on text messaging way too quick. Like they give up on text messaging if they don't get a deal like within the first campaign or the second campaign, they think, all right, let me throw $1,000 in here and I'm gonna get a 20, 30, $40,000 deal. I'm sorry guys, but it doesn't really work that way. That's why you have to come up with a plan, and you have to commit to a certain amount of time, so that way you can implement processes and habits that you continue to repeat over time, so that you can create a sustainable consistency, right? I know that sounds a little redundant, sustainable consistency, but you want to be able to be consistent in this thing. That's really where everyone that is successful in this gets it from. So if you look at here, let me share a different screen now. So who is currently doing cold calling? Anybody? Nobody? Nobody's doing cold calling? Okay, so if you guys look at this response rate, some of you might think this is good, some of you might think it's bad. It doesn't matter. It's really, how does it compare to what other marketing channels you have, right? So if you think like about TJ, do you remember whenever you did your deal machine campaign of mailers, do you remember how many responses you actually got from how many you had sent? I think you're still muted, bro, if you're talking. No? Okay. Well, what I want you guys to think about is that SMS is great, but you have to really understand the response rate compared to cold calling. That's really when you're going to realize how much of an opportunity it is, because I've done cold calling. You can spend 100 to 200 dials, per day to get, X amount of contacts, right? It's not everybody's going to answer on the first time, and people have lives. Some people work, so they're not always readily available to answer your cold call. But with text messaging, what I really love about it is that they can respond at any time. They can come back in and say, hey, I saw you texting me yesterday. Yes, the house is for sale. And a lot of times, some people take time in responding to your text message, but in cold calling, rarely do people call back and say, hey, yeah, this is the owner of X, Y, and Z, and it does happen. But what I'm just trying to paint in your picture is just be real with the results that you're currently getting on other marketing channels, and compare them to your results in SMS. And then that's really when you can figure out, all right, this is where I want to put my effort forward. But don't, one thing with SMS is I just see so many people giving up so quick because they don't get something immediate. So you have to make sure you plan and go according to that. So let me see, go back to this, the webinar outline. Cool. So the last one is learning from the journey. I like to think that every challenge is an opportunity. So if something is incorrect, then find the solution. Look at all the factors as a whole. So what I mean by that is I didn't immediately, know how to work Smarter Contact and know how to use all the features and then know how to make an educated decision on what benefited me and what did not benefit me at the time. So you have to make sure that you learn from it, right? So going back to what I was saying just now about how people give up on SMS so quickly, is that make sure that if maybe something is bothering you, for example, you're not getting the response rates that you want, then do something about it. How can you, ask yourself the question, how can I get more responses? Or what can I do with the people that aren't responding? And, that's something that people bring up a lot to me, since I do SMS myself, and, I kind of promote the Smarter Contact. Since it's my number one way of finding deals and generating revenue. People think that I can, with a snap of a finger, improve their response rates. Most of the time, what I tell people is that there is so many ways to find the people that have not responded to you. Because if somebody gets a text message, if you guys get a text message right now on your phone, right, and you don't know who it is, you're going to make the same decision these sellers are making, whether or not you're going to respond. So, but if that same person ends up texting you and then calling you, right, you're going to be more impressed and say, hey, you know, this person's really trying to get in touch with me. Let me figure out what they need. So what I mean by that is, for example, there is a way where you can export out all the people that did not respond. And if you were to cold call those people, right, and say, hey, you know, I sent you a text and now I'm calling you because, you know, I just wanted to check in to see if I have the right number at all so I can update my records, then that's going to be a more productive way of going about your data than just doing a campaign, seeing the response rate, being upset with it, and then thinking, okay, well, let me try another campaign. But what happened? What happened with all the other responses that you didn't get to? You know, what happened with the people that didn't respond to you? You have to do something with them, and that's how you learn from the journey. And what I mean by this, a really good example is knowing how to export out all the people that did not respond. So I'm just going to go through that really quickly for those of you that don't know. And I call this recycling data, right? How to recycle data. So if I come in here, can you guys see my my screen?
Yes.
All right. So what I like to do at the, for example, this is a campaign that I did last week, right? I can go ahead and export out all the people that did not respond, all the people that were blocked, and all the people that weren't sent, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them in another campaign and I'm going to text them, and I can say something along the lines of, hey, you know, I texted you last week. I didn't receive a text back. Just making sure if I have the wrong number. You know, if I have the wrong number and people respond, yeah, this is the wrong number, then boom, that's fine. You know, I at least I'm getting a response, so I don't have any kind of ambiguity, or you know what I'm trying to say. So I know exactly what I can do going forward, right? And then what I've noticed is that there's been a few times where I've been able to generate opportunities from texting these leads, or texting the unresponded, texting the carrier block. Like, it is what it is. You know, if they didn't respond the first time, that's the fact. You can't do anything about that, but you can text them again. And this is the way you can do that. Did anybody not know about this? Is this new to anybody? This screen right here, this exporting out the unresponded, exporting out the carrier block, is this new to anybody?
This is actually new to me.
Cool. So this is a really good way of recycling the campaigns that you're already doing. So this is my first attempt right here, right? The one in the foreground, the one in the background right here. This is my first attempt, right? I texted 2,770. But if you guys saw the reporting page back here, yeah, this is it. Only 13.58 responded. So there's still 86 point, you know, a decimal of some sort that did not respond. Well, that's fine, because at least I know where to find them. I come in here and I can export out all the unresponded. And now you can go ahead and text them. And then going forward, maybe the week after that, there's still going to be a ton of people that did not respond, because, you know, people can choose not to respond to you. You can now call them. You know, you can call them the day after that if you wanted to. But what I'm saying here is that there is opportunity, and there's a way to scale into what you're already doing with the tools and the features that you have here. But it just goes back to learning from the journey. Learn from your mistakes. Whatever your results are currently, whether they're overperforming, performing, or underperforming, just make sure that you gather a way to be better than you were yesterday, and make your business better than it was yesterday. So my last thing that I want to cover, and I'm going to go back to the topics of the webinar, is apply what best fits your needs. You don't need to have an exact copy of what other people are doing, right? I have my way of doing SMS. It works for me. You know, I'm very successful at it. I love it. It's generated consistency in my life that I would have never thought about. And, you know, I'm very humbled by the ability to be here and sharing that with you, having this sort of credibility with people, and coming from a place of love. to be able to share that with you. But you don't have to do exactly what I do. You can do something completely different. That's okay. And so if you see something that maybe I talked about today, right? Maybe the creating a plan part, maybe that stuck out with you really well. If that's all that you feel like can apply to your business, that's fine. Do just that. You don't have to copy, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. You can copy as many combinations as you'd like, but just make sure that you're constantly reinventing yourself. And that's the part that people stay stagnant in. Like, I see people using the same messages all the time. They never sit down. I like to think about new text messages at least once a month. I like to sit down and say, all right, how can I create a brand new message? So now I have over 200 message templates accessible to me at all times. And so that what that gives me is an ability to be personal, unique every single time I send a campaign, which allows me to stay on top of my game, allows me to be in one of the most saturated markets in the entire US and continue to still be consistent. That's just something that I was able to do by learning from my mistakes, learning from the journey. Sit down and think about those things. But that is all I have for today. And I'm really thankful. It looks like more people showed up towards the end of it. So thank you for those that joined. But does anybody have any questions? Want me to go back? Maybe you jumped in like halfway through and you didn't see me talk about the beginning of something. Anybody want to ask me something about any part of today's conversation? And just FYI, everybody is muted right now. So if you're asking a question, I can't hear you. Nobody? Well, I will be, if you want to get a copy of the outline of today's call, please let me know. Give me your email. Or email me at kevin@smartercontact.com. I'm going to put it right here, kevin@smartercontact.com, and I will send you exactly the outline that we talked about today. Some of these questions, will help you out at any point in time when you want to revisit this conversation, this webinar, or add this to your notes. And then I'm sure that you can always take something away from it.
Kevin, I got a question, if you don't mind.
What's up, bro?
If you would, could you send us away with like a little jewel that you have? Because as you know, that we pretty much do this thing every single day, and to be honest, sometimes it can get daunting. Like, this is a repetitive thing that we do every day, and sometimes we get burnt down. So what would you say to anybody who goes through that period of being burnt out, and to just to stay consistent and help stay, I guess, positive about what they got going on? What would you say to, as far as like moving forward and being able to not get burnt out or make it through that burnt out period of time?
That's a great question. It's just, and I can definitely feel that, because you're right. For example, you sit here every single day and you're just texting people and you see all these negative responses like F you, go to hell, this and that. It can subconsciously affect your psyche, right? So I always like to do what I love. Like, if when going back to your plan, one of the things that I asked was, the frequency of how often you run a campaign. I've learned that doing one back to back to back to back is very, very, very draining for the soul. And you're just, especially, for example, with me, I want to make sure that every lead that comes in is responded to the same day, and ideally within the first 15 minutes of their text. But what I've learned is that I would rather do a campaign on Monday and then Wednesday and then Friday, for a couple of different reasons. One, that gives me a day in between to review and do some quality assurance on the responses from yesterday, make sure I didn't miss anything. But it also gives me an opportunity to let the phone numbers cool down. There is a cooldown period of 24 hours for the phone numbers, for those of you that didn't know. So if you do a campaign back to back, and then you're trying to do another one on the third day, is you're gonna have worse, or you're gonna have an underperforming campaign because some of those numbers probably were blocked, you know, and that's just the nature of it. So I give myself a day in between. Sometimes I only market twice a week. I think last week, well, actually no, last week I did three days. But this week is Easter weekend, right? So I might only do two working days. Maybe I'll do one, and that's okay. But going back to your goals, your plan, if your goal is to do 26,000 messages per month, and you take 1 week semi slow, right? That's okay, because you know the next week all you have to do is increase the amount or spread out the difference in between the remaining weeks. Does that make sense, TJ?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I hope that that answered the question. Just, you know, space things out, you know, make sure that your plan makes sense. And then, you know, one of the things that I feel a lot of people are aware of, but they don't really do anything about, is like they'll create a plan. And, you know, I've gone through this where I'll create a plan and then I'm putting it into practice. And then I'm like halfway through this plan that I've made, and I'm like, damn, I feel like it's not working the way I want it to, you know? And I feel bad because I made this plan. I spent time making this plan, and I just don't feel it, like, you know, I don't feel like it's working. There's nothing wrong with starting over. That's part of growing. That's part of learning about the journey. Is if something that you plan that didn't work the way you expected to, then adjust, you know, do something, whatever part gave you most resistance, change that, adjust that to your liking. Ask yourself why you feel like it didn't work, why you're getting burnt out, and going forward, do something different. You know, don't stop trying to do the same thing over and over again, expecting something different. It's not going to happen. I think that's what they call insanity, if I'm not mistaken. But anybody else? Does anybody have any questions? Let me go to the chat. New to me, I didn't know this function was there. Mr. Major, appreciate you. Thank you for the comment. All right, so that is all I have. If anybody wants the topic of the webinar, and then they want the recording, because I did record the entire webinar, please email me, kevin@smartercontact.com, and I will send you the recording. I'll send you the webinar, and you guys can come back to it and look at it anytime. Maybe one of these on a weekend that you want to look over it, or at a point in time where maybe you are getting subpar performance with SMS and you want to think about something different, come back and watch the video, and I'm sure you can learn something from it.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Thank you for coming. I hope you guys have an amazing day. If there is no questions, I'll stay on for another 5 minutes in case you have any particular questions, but otherwise the webinar is over. And thanks for those that participated and asked questions. I really appreciate that. It's time to do another campaign. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and log off. Thank you guys. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. Bye.